Hello and welcome. My name is Sue Greener. I'm a principal lecturer at Brighton Business School at the University of Brighton in the UK. And this is just a quick snapshot presentation to guide you through the basic elements of the paper that I've uploaded on designing a business degree with a PBL ethos. PBL is problem-based learning, sometimes called inquiry-based learning. And this paper is not just about problem-based learning, but it is a fundamental building block for the way we designed our course. Let me explain. Brighton Business School, and you can see a picture of the main building there, is a very large school. We welcome around 600 students every year into the first year of our business degrees, and as a result of the numbers we have lots of elective modules, lots of choice for our students. A big range of courses are taught. Also, it's very close to the city centre of Brighton, which is very attractive for many students, being on the south coast and a vibrant city. So we were challenged when we were asked to come up with a business course which was distinctive, but instead of delivering it at Brighton, this would be delivered at Hastings. Hastings is a slightly smaller town which is further along to the east of Brighton on the south coast of the UK. It's got plenty of attractions, but not the kind that Brighton offers students, so it's not quite as popular with students. So we wanted some sort of innovative honours degree in business that we could just deliver at Hastings, and by necessity, Hastings campus is multidisciplinary and has relatively small teaching areas, and therefore we were going to be teaching to small groups, not the huge groups that do normal lectures and seminars on the Brighton campus. In that campus, the main undergraduate offer is modular. That makes a great deal of sense in Brighton because it means lots of choice and it means students can transfer quite freely at various stages through their course to study what they're particularly interested in. Quite different from Hastings. Here's Hastings. It's a city centre campus. This isn't the only building in Hastings campus, but it's one of them. And what we had in Hastings was the need for something distinctive, not necessarily brand new, but we had to come up with a special offer to show that there was something particular you could study at Hastings in business. So we had to come up with something which wasn't fully online. We did want students face-to-face in the campus in Hastings. And we couldn't offer a specialist business degree because we are already appealing to a smaller market in Hastings. Equally, we had to use the QAA guidelines, that's the quality assurance guidelines in the UK, to make sure that the subject benchmark, what is normally taught on a UK business degree, was achieved. That was obviously very important. So we couldn't change a great deal about the content, about the learning outcomes which we had to offer on this degree. But we could try to make it more relevant to the students who studied in Hastings in smaller groups. We had to offer face validity. We had to make sure that this course would be exciting to students and would really feel practical. And there was a reason for that, because we'd been teaching business on other types of courses, top-up courses and foundation degrees in Hastings, and we were finding that the students who liked to study there tended to have a very practical focus. They liked experiential learning, and they came up with really creative ideas, practical ideas, perhaps slightly less academic, although of course they still have to face the same academic rigour and requirements as any other honours degree in the UK. So this gave us an idea. We decided to focus on the design of the degree rather than the content so much. And the design of the degree we focused on was problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is often confused with case-based learning, case study learning, and in fact in Brighton Business School we do masses of case study learning and a little bit of problem-based learning there too. Case study learning is quite different. With a case study you have either a fictional or a real case study, and you usually have a great deal of background information to the case, which allows students to try to solve problems within quite a richly detailed, specific example environment. Problem-based learning, however, is quite the reverse. The whole idea is that you get the kind of stimulus to problem solving that you would in the real world. And in the real world, we don't have all the facts and figures about a case. What we often have is an email or a chance conversation or a letter or an announcement by government that they're changing the playing field for how we run our business. So very little information. We start from there. And in that particular case, we need to develop skills to identify what's the context of this change or this problem. We need to identify what resources we have, what we know, what we don't know, and then try and work from that limited knowledge to greater knowledge in order to try to come up with some satisfactory responses. This is what we felt would be appropriate for this degree, a problem basis. So we began with real, authentic business problems. I'll explain more about how we found them in a moment. So we didn't start by teaching the basics. We started with the problems. We threw students into complex, messy, real problems. And we got them to work in groups, competitively, to try to come up with solutions to these problems in order to develop an appetite for learning amongst those students. So they really needed to know stuff in order to solve the problems. This is one of the big attractions of problem-based learning. It gets students really interested in the whole idea of finding out new knowledge and evaluating it in order to come to problem solutions. Yes, of course, they'll often jump to the easiest and first solution they come across, and that's our job as academics, to make sure that they have a look at a wider range of potential solutions, and that just in time, if you like, we provide them with the kind of scaffolding and the kind of learning theories, models, cycles, techniques, which would help them in their problem understanding. Another specific thing we did for this course design was try to treat students as apprentice professionals, not as periodic attenders of the occasional class, which so often happens with big courses. We knew that in Hastings there would be very little elective choice. So we had to give the maximum scope for students to develop their own pathway through the degree while still providing a pretty standardised course. And of course we did have to have modules because that fits the way we timetable and allocate staff. So we had to use modules, but we didn't design a modular course. We designed a holistic course which built gradually to develop students' understanding of problems as they needed to develop it. So what happened to our course design? Well, it took 2 attempts to get this course design through our peers because it really didn't fit. It was so distinctive. It didn't fit the normal modular design ideas, the normal ways of teaching, which were the most common ways of doing this in the business school. So as I say, it was only a nominal modular design, and on the right hand side you can see the blue boxes show different modules, but they were only modules in theory because actually each one was integrated. You can see the red arrows are showing that these were the types of subject knowledge in the first year: global business context, marketing, accounting, and people, organisations and work, all well and good. You would find these on any business course. But what we did was begin with the Solving Business Problems course. This was totally problem-based learning, providing problems which we selected on the basis of having a particular need for one of these specific context areas. So the first problem had to do with global context. The problem was set with a travel agency in the UK, which dealt specifically with a particular area of Spain, which was undergoing political problems at the time of delivering that particular problem. And it made students think about the European Union, the restrictions of working in 2 countries with different legislatures, and some of the other things that hit global business, including, of course, politics. So at the same time as setting the problem, we then gradually introduced some scaffolding around this area. And then once the problem was solved and presented back to the clients, then they were asked to take all this learning from both the problem solution and the scaffolding course and put this together into a year-long case study. This was a real business case study, and it allowed them to take more time to reflect on what they'd learned and to apply it to another authentic, but this time a case. So much more time to do this through the year. And the same thing happened with different problems which related to different kinds of curricular discipline. At the same time, we were running a business enterprise model. This was a very practical experience involving understanding about entrepreneurial activity, but mostly meeting local business people and communicating with them and having to develop ideas for them. And underpinning all this, we had continuing professional development, which it wasn't just the normal academic skills and time organisation, all that sort of thing, which all first-year students must learn. It was also very much about what professional skills they felt they could pull from their learning. And it provided what I would call a sandpit, a play area, if you like, so that they could bring any problems from any part of their course. And in this module, they could seek to discuss with tutors and with other students some of the issues they were coming up against, and we could provide needed support as they needed it. So this course was validated for entry in September 2012. We recruited only 9 students, very small, but then we were used to small groups within the Hastings area. That wasn't a major problem for us. Also, we'd only got validation just in time for this entry, so there wasn't a great deal of time to do a lot of marketing of the new course. Over the first couple of years, we lost 3 students from that original cohort. But the major problem here was that there was insufficient cohort size for the September 13 entry. And in the September 14 entry, we tried very hard again to market the programme, but by midway through the year, we hadn't achieved sufficient numbers for the school to accept it as a sufficient cohort. So effectively, by middle of 2013-14, the course was closed. So is this a failure? Well, yes, in one sense, of course it is. We had developed a whole new course with a great course design. Our students were very happy from that first cohort. The staff could see the learning, the students could evidence the learning, and this really followed through in when they applied for their placement in their 3rd year. They were able to demonstrate to employers how they had solved real problems in business, and this was a win-win situation for the students, but not obviously for the university, because after one cohort we had to close the course design, even in Hastings, where a small number was okay. If we were only showing signs of 5 or 6 students, then we simply weren't going to pay our way as a course. So a problem. So what do we learn from this experience? We had a devoted course team, by which I mean both they were passionate about it, and it was a particular team who were teaching Hastings business. We met together a great deal of time during particularly the early development stages, the first 2 years of the course, and so we did a lot of development work together. We learned as individual academics. We learned a great deal about problem-based learning and how to run it. We did lots of workshops. We enlisted the help of specialists in problem-based learning, which we had in the University of Brighton. They mentored us and helped us deliver. We took this holistic approach, but one of the major problems was it wouldn't scale to the Brighton campus. So that meant that we couldn't just take students who'd applied to Hastings if we were not running the course there and say it's okay, you can do it in the main campus, because it was a quite different course. Nor could we take the students who'd started on the first year and take them over for their second year to Brighton, because we did not provide a similar offering to the first year modular course in Brighton. So that gave us a lot of constraints. So this transferring in and out of the course was seriously not possible because of the integrated structure of the course. The other major lesson, if you like, or perhaps the major downside, was that it involved a great deal of intensive effort from the staff in order to develop and sustain sufficient business connections. We attended early breakfast meetings with local business networks, chambers of commerce, Federation of Small Businesses. We spent a great deal of time going to local business events, and we developed some really great links with local businesses. In return, they provided us with real problems for the Solving Business Problems course, and they really got involved with our students. They came to seminars in the second and final year. They were very, very supportive. But of course, that's a lot of effort to ask of the average academic, so potentially another downside. What did we gain from the course design experience? Well, we learned a great deal about problem-based learning. And of course, we don't just teach at Hastings, we teach at Brighton too, and that's enabled us to bring some of those ideas back into the modular structure at Brighton. We generally found that because it was an isolated, integrated course, and that lack of transferability, it's fabulous for module teaching, but not great for the whole course unless you can really sustain the numbers. If we had, we think this would have become a flagship programme for the Hastings campus and for Brighton Business School. The whole thing was built on social constructivist principles. We took those to heart. We really understood the theory and applied it in all of our teaching on this programme. And we know that these students gained. We know from their relationships with their placement organisations and their final year. We also know from just a simple comparison of how these students bonded together through the programme and have supported each other's learning all the way through the programme. They didn't all get on to begin with. They were like any other student group, very diverse. You can see our initial student group in the picture. But through the processes of problem-based learning and using social constructivism, very valuing of what the students brought to the course and trying to help them understand what they already knew and how they could build on that learning, we found that we had some really great candidates for learning in business. And we helped them develop professional and practical skills from real business issues, including how to problematize when you have very little information. This is something that our traditional students tend to learn only in their final year, whereas these students were learning it from day one. They were given authentic, experiential learning activities. And what can we do with this as a result of our learning experience? You can see here one of the opportunities that our students had in meeting local businesses. We understand that course-based, problem-based learning is not easy. It can work well, but it's really hard to deliver this in practice because of the transferability in particular and the staff-intensive focus. It's great for modular courses. You can use problem-based learning in modular courses, although, of course, if you don't introduce them until a second or final year, you have a lot of explaining to do because students demand the initial understanding and find it very hard when you don't give them any. You can insert pure problem-based learning experiences within the learning design of a module, but ideally you would want to do that fairly early on before students become immersed in a very traditional design. And the other thing we really learned was that learning technologies were immensely helpful, both the students and the staff. We used them in lots of ways. We had digital reading lists, we used video minutes that students did from course meetings on problem design and solution where there were no academics present, so they could use the upload of a video minute to show attendance and to identify actions. We used e-portfolio software a great deal. We developed lots of video lectures, particularly for the just-in-time support of students where they particularly needed to know about something new, not necessarily delivered automatically on the curriculum. Lots and lots of other ways in which technologies, through our virtual learning environment, enabled these students to get the best learning they could. So there we are. We have ostensibly, on the face of it, a failed course, but a huge amount of learning for the staff, a huge amount of learning for the students, and we still believe that if we'd been able to get sufficient numbers, we would have had a brilliant programme. Here are the references in this particular presentation, but I'd recommend that you read the paper, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for listening.